Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend. And you are listening to Light Talk.
And yeah, this is Stan. Good morning, and I just walked in the door from Gainesville, Florida. Today, we're discussing LED fixtures, a green screen, overused follow spots, and lighting the time of day, all on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
Hallelujah.
We're back to the high falsettos. Welcome, everyone, to episode 188. 188.
188. You saw my rainbows. Wow.
Thanks for the rainbows. Well, first of all, news. Well, we're going to have an election update here.
We do?
Yes, an election update.
What's happened in the last hour? The United States of drama.
First of all, we have to inform our listeners that we're recording this on Thursday, which is 2 days ago, and we have no idea who's won the election. You guys know by now, because it's Saturday morning, hopefully they'll have a decision. But up to this point, there is none. So we're still in limbo. We're still counting the ballots, and everyone needs to continue counting ballots.
I've got a few extras in my bathroom.
Well, except for Brackley in Las Vegas, they announced a couple days ago it would be Friday. And then today they said, I'm sure it's going to be Saturday. Certainly no later than Sunday, but it might be the 12th.
You can take that to the casino. Bet on Sunday.
It could be any time. It could be any time. All right. So anyway, we want to say, first of all, thank you to everyone who listened to our show last week. It was our Ming Tribute Show. We want to thank Chris Barreca and Ann Sheffield for really quickly committing to the show. They basically had like a half a day, and they were really kind to do it. And we got word that Betsy heard it, and she really, really enjoyed it.
That's the Real Knoches right there.
And if you haven't listened to it, please go and check it out. That was episode 187. And I believe the title was He Will Be Missed. So, and he's going to be missed. That was the title. It was actually a quote from Ann Sheffield. So there you go.
A couple people were having trouble finding the Ming books. One book is readily available on Amazon for about $40. The other one, though, the USITT book, people were saying they were having a hard time finding it. And at the risk of sounding naive, have you contacted USITT? Because if they indeed are sold out, they might be considering another production run. So I would contact USITT.
Definitely contact USITT. It's a very strange, it's a wonderful book, by the way. And if you haven't seen it, you should see it, and every library should have it. So please add it to your librarian's list so that your students can read it and learn about this amazing theater artist. Okay, so let's get started. Steve has our first listener question.
Yes, it comes from Ernst in Canada. And Ernst writes, I am buying my first 12 LED ERS fixtures, and I've narrowed it down to the Martin Pro ELP-CL and the Ovation E910FC. Any suggestions? Okay, I think your question is wrong. And I think the question is, I'm buying my first 12 ERS fixtures, and I'm thinking about buying some more. So I think you got to get this right the first time you do it, because you don't want to buy 12 fixtures and go, well, they're pretty good, but I think I'll go with the other brand, and then have 24, and you've got 2 sets of lights in the air. I think you want to match your lights as you start expanding. I've looked at both of these lights, and I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm going to make people upset. And I'm just going to jump in there and say I think I would go with the Martin fixture. Primarily because I think it just inches the Ovation out. 6,900 lumens coming off that thing. It has a high CRI rating. I really like the fine focus knob on it and the ability to lock that knob so that your lens doesn't drift. I like the fact that you can use third-party lenses in it. Now, some of these features overlap with Chavez also, so, I haven't written them off yet. I really like the 26 color presets. I like the 4 selectable dimming curves. I like all that about it. If I were going to pick at it, I would say it's 17 pounds. The Ovation, I believe, is 15 pounds. So I got a little bit of weight issue there. I looked at the dynamic effects between the two. They're both effectively the same thing. Chauvet doesn't tell you how many color presets you have, and with Ovation you have 26. They both have a strobe effect. They both have a reasonable dimming curve. The color range, I think, is better. The color temperature range, I think, is better on the Martin. That's 2,000 to 10,000 degrees. And the color range on the Ovation is 2,800 to 6,500. Now, there's a price difference, and as best I could tell, and I didn't call either company up, but I'm just looking at kind of street prices that are popping up on the internet. The Ovation is considerably less expensive than the Martin. The other thing I liked about the Martin, though, is that when I started looking at its approval rating around the world, it's rated in just all over the place. I mean, it's UL listed here in the United States. I could not find anywhere on the website of Chauvet's Ovation that it's UL rated. Now, it does say it meets the qualifications of CE, MET, and FCC, but I didn't see a UL rating. So that might be something you have to consider if you're, a university or a city theater. You might want to just double check on that. The other thing, now that's something that the Ovation does that I like, is it's pretty quiet. It is very quiet, and I think it is slightly less noisy than the Martin fixture is. But I don't think, with 12 lights, I don't think that's a problem. I think if you're putting 200 in the air, it might be a different issue. So I think both of them are fine pieces of equipment. One is, one is an A. I'm going to give Martin a A rating, and I'm going to give Ovation maybe an A- rating. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. But if I were going to buy it, I have to say I personally would go with the Martin.
I didn't think I was going to have so much to say about this, and I do, but I realize I do, and I've just been waiting for the opportunity to disagree with Steve on something, so get a little going here.
You never do.
Well, I do today in a gentle way. So one, I don't think I've studied the fixtures as well as Steve has, but I do have Ovation FCs in my light lab, and we have been speccing on consulting projects, some of those ELPs. And I did like what I saw when I saw them on the show floor. But to Steve's point about you don't want to mix fixtures, and going back to Jennifer Tipton's thing about, you want to have consistency across your fixtures, I disagree a little bit. What you don't want to have is mixed fixtures in the same system. So I think it's okay to have different fixtures in your inventory, but you wouldn't want to have if all your front light might be a mixture of different brands. That would not be good. So I think you want system conformity, not necessarily inventory conformity. That's just my position. And the other point that Steve makes is a good one, where I do agree. Independent testing labs, the two big ones in the United States, Underwriters Laboratory and Intertech. I mean, it is a little bit risky because they test that stuff for fires, longevity, safety, So independent testing labs serve a really good purpose in this country, and there's lots of places in the world that don't have them. And so I think that's a good point, depending upon where you're working. And I did like the Martin fixture and so we've specified them. I think the Ovation is fine as well, depending upon the application. In our light lab, it's fine, right? For student projects, it's fine. And I do like that locking knob on the that fine tuning on the lens barrel. There's some good stuff there. We have them going on a project in Tampa that will open in about, a month or two, and we'll see how they do in the field.
The Martin or the Ovation?
The Martin, the ELP.
You just said you have them in your light lab.
I have the Ovation.
Chavez site says they are virtually silent.
Well, I have to say our light lab's pretty small. It's a little shoebox, long and narrow, and I have not noticed them. There have been no complaints.
Well, there you go.
If I was doing an opera or a musical or some quiet show that is sound sensitive,
that matters.
I'd go with the Ovations.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I mean, even a little bit of sound, when you multiply that by 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, then it becomes a lot of sound.
Oh, Richard in Vermont. Oh, Vermont, such a blue state. The blue state wants to know, how does a green screen work? Hey, that's pretty funny. Well, green screen. So I didn't know anything about green screens until COVID hit. And we're doing a bunch of stuff with green screens now in actors' homes. And so we had to learn a little bit about them. And so here's what I understand. When you want to put a background behind somebody who's on camera, the green screen is the way to do it. And basically, it's a particular frequency of color. And the camera can, if you have enough light on both the green screen and the subject or the performer, then the camera can tell the difference between the background and the edge of the performer, and then you can basically chroma key or key in any image that you want, like the weatherman on TV. But I also didn't know that you had to have a lot of light, because we really found out you got to have a lot of light for the camera to make so you don't fade. You don't just like in Zoom. Sometimes you like fade into the background. That's because there's not enough light on you if you're using a virtual background. So we are using those. And the other thing I learned is why green. And apparently the answer is because green is back to David's conversations about the red-green theory of light from John Gleason, that because green is the complement to red, it actually helps contrast skin tone. So you can use blue screens. You could use any color, but they use green, generally speaking, so that the talent looks best. And that's what I know about them. And I'm wondering if Steve knows, because he's done more TV than I have.
Well, I mean, you hit the big point there. It can be any vibrant color.
Yeah.
You know, green and blue are the two that are most used because they differ so greatly from human skin tones.
Yeah.
And green and blue aren't usually found in clothing on camera. Right. But any vibrant color will work, so it doesn't really matter. I think with the green screen, the thing you got to keep in mind is you have to do your job as a lighting designer or as a lighting technician. You've got to get that green screen. You've got to get it hung. You've got to get it flat. And actually, I prefer using a cloth green screen over a paper green screen. It needs a soft, even light on it. So I'm old school. I use a couple Mole Richardson 2K soft lights. And then I also, I want to get that as flat as possible and as even as possible. Then I put my talent in front of the green screen, and I try to pull that person about 6 feet forward. If sometimes you don't have that clearly. You don't have much room. But the ticket here is you then have to light the person independently from the screen, because you're trying not to get any shadows from the person on the screen, because those shadows keep the screen from having an even wash of light on it. So I hang a couple lights, couple backlights, kind of hair lights, body lights from behind, so I get a good edge on that person. Mm-hmm. The idea is you want to get that edge so that edge is clean and sharp. So that means your camera guy or girl has to do some work there. You want that camera and that person sharp, and you want the green screen just slightly out of focus if you can get it. And then pro tip, you're worried about getting light on that screen. Put yourself some reflective material down on the floor, if you can, in front of the talent, and shoot down on the floor and bounce that light back up on the talent. Mm. And so that shadow then is going up. It's not going straight back. And then I pop in a couple soft lights also to fill the person out from the front. You know, it's why you see such bad television weatherman lighting, and you see this kind of green chromatic aberration around the body. Yeah. It's because it's not very well lit. They don't have much space. The cameraman's not quite doing his job. The other pro tip, and this one's an easy. It's common sense, but no one ever thinks of it. And it took me a while to figure this out. You really got to know what image you're going to put behind them.
Yeah, because costumes too.
Well, the trick here is once you know what image you're putting behind them, the pro tip is you light your talent to match the image.
Bingo.
And that way it's all seamless.
Yes, we actually, our students who did it this year, this semester, they figured that out. They worked with the set designer. They looked at the lighting in the image, and then she actually gelled things to match what was in the image. And it looked, I have to say, I didn't think the project worked out very well, his first production, because I think it wasn't, the literature didn't translate to this kind of format. It's, I think these digital things are short form kinds of work, but the look they got was great. And she did exactly that.
I'm getting ready to do a whole Hedda gobbler that is going to be green screened.
We're doing Three Sisters in the spring, same way.
And I've done half a Hedda gobbler at one point.
I'd like a half a Hedda cabbage.
A fraction of Hedda. I agree with Steve. It's really important when you're dealing with green screens is that you get distance between the talent and the green screen.
Yeah, distance is the other one, right.
Especially so that it allows you a good backlight.
And you don't have to have expensive equipment.
No, and you don't need a lot of it either.
One of my students is doing a church right now. And it's just, they found out he was a lighting designer, said, hey, do you want to light our TV ministry? He's using a green screen and a couple very modestly priced softboxes. So it doesn't have, you don't have to spend a ton of money to do this. You just kind of need to get the things in the right positions.
It's really true. We bought a kit for all of our, we have 9 lighting kits for our students. They'll get a green screen. They get a ring light. For front fill, and there's a spot ender for nail. But Steve, the problem that we have had, I'm glad you brought it up, is some of them are recording in their bedrooms, and we just can't get enough distance. Well,
you got the ring lights from hell. I've never seen ring lights larger than the ones you guys bought. Those things are powerful.
They're pretty big. They're too powerful. They are too powerful.
Exactly.
But we've used some neutral density to knock it down. It depends on the proximity. But the students we're all learning a lot from this whole process.
Sure.
It's been...
It's pretty cool. Another pro tip, something that we learned, along with that green screen, especially if you're doing kits like Stan's doing, and I know we have 9 kits also, is to get a good deal of green material that you can put on the floor.
Yeah.
Because if that person is standing downstage like 2 or 3 feet, so you get a good backlight angle, you're going to need something that ties in the floor to that green screen. Then you can actually wrap the image around the talent. And that's really important because we needed that. And we were asking people to go into their closets and to find green towels or green shirts or green. One student says, I have bras that are green. What if I put them down?
I have a curiosity. Can I ask a question, David? Did you shoot them from full body or half body? Like how much?
We did both. Yeah, the full body needs to go from obviously the feet all the way up.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet.
And they make this material. They actually make green screen material
Cloth,
that you can buy.
Like in a roll.
Yeah, it's like a roll. Yeah. So I said, boy, did we learn something on this one. We need this.
Okay, I've got a solution, and I'm not going to even charge the University of Florida for it. If your lights are too bright, one, you could just turn them and bounce it off the wall.
Yes, we've done that. Yep,
okay.
We've done that. Yep.
Next step. Go down to, forget the neutral density, go down to K-Mart and get yourself some inexpensive sheets or pillowcases and shoot the light through the sheet or the pillowcase. Then just double it up until you get what you want.
Unfortunately, our K-Mart went out of business.
When was the last K-Mart? I guess you got to go to Walmart.
Target. Go to Target and get some sheets. Everybody makes it way too hard. Sorry, Roscoe.
We have tons of sheets, and I think we're at that point where we have made some good. But the bounce helped a lot. We're doing the bounce worked really, really well.
Yep.
Well, Cricket in Mississippi writes, "Do you think follow spots are overused?"
Where?
Tupelo.
Where? What? Yeah, Tupelo, Mississippi. That's what she said.
No, but I mean, like, in what kind of? I need a context. Like, I need a context, like in a musical, in a straight play, in a rock concert, like where?
Let me just say, if you think follow spots are overused, they are.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, if you go see a show and you say, "Oh, these follow spots are overused,"
they're overused if they don't stay on the performer. Badly used.
Well, yeah, I did a show once where I had 5 follow spots, and I fired all of them on opening night. All of them. I fired all 5 electricians. Right. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. That was a really bad musical.
Was Cricket one of them?
No, Cricket was not one of them. The only Cricket I know, believe it or not, is Cricket Myers, who's a fabulous sound designer here in LA. And
wait, you're getting off topic.
That's the greatest name for a sound designer.
You're getting off topic.
I mean, really, Cricket? Okay, anyway.
Well, I want to say something about the Followspot thing.
Well, let me answer it first. I mean, that's the format of the show.
Answer.
Usually
Come
the
on.
person who actually asks the question actually answers it first, and then you guys jump in.
Is that how it works?
Or disagree. This is how the show, 188 episodes. I have to explain how the damn show works.
I'm still learning.
Okay, so let me tell you, I grew up back in the day.
When I was an
undergraduate student. I went to the Ring Theater at the University of Miami, and we did 90% of the time we did musicals. And we did old style musicals. We did the musicals of the 50s and 60s, like No No Nanette. We did Carousel. We did, Ain't Misbehaving. Not Ain't Misbehaving. What am I thinking about that?
Get to the Followspot point already.
All the great Cole Porter. All the great Cole Porter musicals. And we had 2 Followspots. They were Trouperettes. So it was a small theater. And we did the old musical Followspot sort of thing where you do notice the Followspots because the style of the show we did them in,
was
appropriate, and it was very music. It was Broadway musicals of the 1960s, which usually had, Followspots. And I was a Followspot operator, and I was the worst Followspot operator, but I won't get into that.
It was cliche.
Yeah, in that style, that's what it was. And again, this was back in the 70s. It was a whole different thing. Because remember, Followspots were all manually run. They were usually pretty large. Some of them were strong troopers, which were carbon arc. It's hard to be subtle with that type of light, except if you were a Broadway Followspot operator. Because some of the greatest artists, technicians that I've ever seen were Broadway Followspot operators. And I'll tell you what, in my opinion, was the best Followspot design at that time in the 70s. And the best operation of those Followspots was Theron Musser's design of a chorus line. I have never seen better Followspot operation because it was subtle. It was so beautifully subtle with long iris ends, that went from full body to the head while the rest of the lighting atmosphere was changing. The Followspots were part of the overall lighting design. And Theron was the first person that I ever saw do that. And I know there are other artists out there who've done that, but that was the first one I saw do that. And it changed my whole approach to designing Followspots.
I have the perfect story to complement.
I'm not finished answering, Stan.
I'm sorry. You're not done yet.
For God's sake.
It's only been 3 minutes.
188 episodes.
It's like 4-minute answer here.
Well, you know me. I do long answers because I like telling stories.
That's why you have so much editing time on your hands that you have to do.
That's right. I cut most of my stuff out.
So let me in already.
Not yet. I'll get there. So anyway, I've got a big thing here. I've only 1/8 through my whole
God,
diatribe.
I've got to go get some coffee.
Get something to drink. Have a piece of celery. I don't care. Enjoy yourself. So anyway, that's the key, is that you design your Followspots within your design. And you consider them that way. Because I started getting into opera, and Followspots in opera are used totally different than musicals. In opera, Followspots need to be subtle. It's sort of like a moving fill light. And you can ask my assistants, and you can ask some Followspot operators around the country that how strict I am when I say, I don't want to see the Followspot. That's what I always tell my Followspot operators. I don't ever want to see the Followspot. I want to just know that it's there. And I can see it, believe me, but I don't want the audience to see it. And that's how I do, subtle Followspots. And sometimes I even use Followspots in regular plays and just straight plays. It doesn't matter as long as it's beautifully subtle and it's part of the entire design that you're doing.
Are you done yet? I have the big story. I'm dying to say this because I have the perfect story to complement your point, and now it's going to come so late that it might not have the impact, but you'll edit it correctly.
So you are listening to Light Talk, and today Light Talk is sponsored by...
Listen to me. I've got this great story. So, because David's right, everything he said. 1,000%.
Except.
He saw, I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm going to amplify your point in a beautiful way. So do you all remember the great stage designer, Joe Melzina?
Melzina?
Yeah, Melzina. That's how I pronounce it.
Oh, you said Melzina.
Lesser known stage designer.
How do you pronounce it?
Melzina.
Melzina. Okay.
He said Melzina.
So here's the story. When he did the classic production of Death of a Salesman, he also lit it. And he wanted to be able to emphasize the characters in the most subtle way possible. And of course, there were no moving lights, and the follow spots they had could not do it. They couldn't. So here's what he did. He went, who was the great lighting company of the day at that time? Steve?
Times Square.
Nope.
4-star.
Nope. Manufacturer.
It's got to be Bash.
No.
Kliegel.
He went to Kliegel and he said, I want a follow spot that's a soft light like a Fresnel that I can control the beam, I can control the intensity, and I can make it so subtle that it blends in. So when the characters walk around the stage, they just have this glow, but nobody knows where it's coming from. It's like it's coming from them. And Kliegel built a fixture called the Dyna-Beam, Dyna-Beam, and you can look it up.
I know it. That's it.
You know the Dyna-Beam.
Yeah.
And we had one at my high school. And it was the most beautiful thing. And I learned how to run it. I learned how to run a follow spot on a Dyna-Beam, and I was a little scrawny kid, and those things are huge. And the gel changers, the gels were like 10 inches by 10 inches, and they had these huge handles, and you had to pull the handles. But when you pulled the handles, the whole spot moved. So you had to hold it with it had a 3,000 watt a mogul bipost lamp with a Fresnel lens and an iris. But to your point, that was exactly the dream that happened at that time. And that's how you use a follow spot in a way like where it's art, where it's not the vaudeville crisp circle around somebody with the shadow. And you're right, David. And it's to be able to run it like an artist takes practice, it takes discipline, and it takes talent. Right. So I wanted to share that about the Dyna-Beam, and you probably couldn't buy one today. But and there was another one called the Color Spot, that color train, which bounced the light off a mirror.
Oh, yeah.
Which was also a great follow spot. So I think there's a spectrum of follow spot work and how you use them. And
you know who made the best subtle follow spots of that time?
Dyna-Beam.
Nope. Pani.
Oh, yes, that's
Pani
true.
made the best
in Europe.
follow spots, because what I'd use Panis for,
the bridge follow spots.
I'd put them on the ends of the bridge, so it'd be like a high side position.
Yep.
And I'd have them on every bridge, and boy, is that beautiful. Yep. And it's it's relatively small.
I know
and
them.
Really super powerful.
We had them at Production Arts, yes. And you know what, David? On the Pani follow spots, if you buy today, Gary Fales bought the patent from the guy who invented that. So the
Ludwig Pani?
No, there was an individual, I can't remember his name, who actually invented the yoke with the counterbalance system.
Oh, right.
Which is what they used. And so if you buy a Source 4 follow spot yoke for a Source 4 from City Theatrical, it is basically that design.
That's interesting. But, other good, great follow spot designs I've seen at the original production of Les Mis. Incredible follow spot. They may have been Juliet's. I'm not too sure, but I'm talking about running them and placing them. And David Hersey did the design for that, I believe. And he had them also on the ends as pipe ends.
Pipe ends.
Beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah. Again, very subtly and beautifully designed. Even if you take like an LED Lico, put an iris in it, and just have, an operator up there, and obviously some sort of soft diffusion, and then control it all by the board. Fantastic.
So the answer to cricket in Mississippi is no, they're not overused when they're used well, artfully, and beautifully.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a whole art to great musical comedy follow spot cueing.
That's
when
true
you
too.
Have like builds and buttons.
Yeah.
Sometimes the button, the follow spot snaps out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you pull the color out, you drop the color.
Absolutely.
Just things like that great artists do. They just do it, and it's brilliant. And you know who else is a great follow spot designer? Ken Billington.
Oh, yeah.
Ken Billington. When I assisted him, I just freaked out at how good the follow spots were. And it's because he knew what he was doing. And, he's worked on Broadway so long and he knows all that. And I learned a lot of follow spot cueing from great Broadway directors too. They say, this, if we do this at the button, oh, I never tried that. Okay, let's try. Oh my God, that's gorgeous.
It's a punctuation. Yeah, such a punctuation.
It's a punctuation.
Yep. You are listening to Light Talk. And today, Light Talk is sponsored by
Tehran Stage Lighting. Tehran Stage Lighting knows, well, we're not the first name in stage lighting that comes to your mind. That when you think Tehran, you think about our famous carpets, maybe our beautiful cats, and who among us doesn't love Gaz? Gaz, Persian nougat with pistachios. Your grandmother makes it for the Persian New Year. Yeah, Gaz. So why are our beautifully lighted stage productions so often overlooked? After all, we have some of the best lighting designers and technicians in the world. Well, it all comes down to shadow control. Don't believe me? Just ask yourself, do you have distracting shadows in your show? Do you have multiple shadows moving around the stage? Do you have shadows falling across the faces of other actors? Tehran Stage Lighting thinks you do. What to do, kittens? What to do? Well, you can put your mind to rest and look no further than the good men and women of Tehran Stage Lighting to help you with this. Tehran Stage Lighting suggests you call Susie in sales and say, send me some Shadow-Shooer straight away to shoo those shadows off the stage. Shadow-Shooer, it's goo be gone for lighting designers. With the squeeze of the spray bottle, your shadows are good as gone. And now Shadow-Shoo comes in 3 levels of shadow-shooing power. Original for community and university productions. Pro Power for LORT and Broadway productions, and new for 2020, outdoor, suitable for festival, state fair gigs, and rodeos. Shadow-Shooer is shipped in a convenient 12-ounce spray bottle with a 1-gallon refill. Ask about our 3-ounce travel size for the tech table to handle those last-minute shadow surprises. For those tough, hard-to-handle opera shadows, ask about our 35-gallon drum sprayer. Tehran Stage Lighting. We are a cheeky rigger company.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, the sound of those crazy ducks tells us that once again it's time for another installment of Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About subject is, why is emotion, art, and precision important in lighting design? Stan?
Well, I wanted to talk about emotion.
Well, we're talking about this. So talk about emotion, then I'll talk about art, and then Steve will talk about precision, okay?
Okay. Well, I want to know how do you make a choice based on what you feel, and how do you put yourself in a place where you're feeling the work rather than watching the work? How do you stay in touch with your emotions, and how do you translate the emotional feeling you're getting from a scene or a dance or an opera into a choice, particularly when you're in tech and the clock is running? How do you do that? What kind of headspace do you have to be in? Right? Because the clock is running, the director's talking to you, you're looking at the stage, you're taking a lot of information, and you have to make a choice. Is it purely intuitive? Do you give yourself time to sort of drink it in and feel it? Or have you gotten it from rehearsals and you've made notes? I'm wondering how people do that.
I think it's different. I think for everybody. I think it's just different for everybody. I mean, everyone works a little differently. There's no way you can teach this.
Oh, I know. I know that.
But emotion is so important, absolutely, in design.
But can you feel it? Do you feel it, David, Steve?
Oh,
when you're sitting in rehearsal, do you feel sad? Do you feel happy? Do you feel? Do you feel the emotion?
Oh yeah, I feel the emotion when I listen to the music, and it's really easy. I mean, people ask, why do you do opera all the time? Do musicals all the time? It's so easy. It really is.
It's easier, it's
easier. It's not, It's easy for me because that's always been my method of expressing emotion.
You are a musician.
It's through music, and light's the same thing to me.
But you're a musician, so it's in your heart, right?
Well, you don't have to be a musician to have music in your heart.
Right, true.
You really don't. And But you have to have a good sense of music. But that being said, it brings on an emotional response. Music always does. And if you listen to any sort of Puccini opera, right, or Wagner or Mozart, the music will just say it. It'll just say it to you.
So, I think there's only two emotions, really. And then there's just shades of gray. I think there's really two. It's either hope, it's either love or hope and fear. And everything else is just sort of a shade of either one of those.
Well, that's three. You said there were two.
Well, let's say it's hope and fear. Do you agree?
But what happened to love?
Well, love is in there with hope.
Okay, I think love's different from hope, don't you?
I don't know.
I'd say there are three emotions.
But am I right? Am I right that essentially we have two emotions, hope and fear?
No, I think you have three.
Okay.
I think love is different.
All right, so let's
hope.
say, okay, I'll retract. I think you only have three emotions: love,
there you go.
hope, and fear. Am I right? Am I right?
No, you're wrong.
Okay. Go, Steve. Go.
No, it doesn't. I think there are all kinds of emotions.
Well, let's hear the words.
Okay, I would say there are 27.
Okay.
It's like a Baskin-Robbins emotion store. 31 emotions. 31 emotions. 31 emotions that you're a Baskin-Robbins ice cream store.
I'm gonna do this. I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Admiration.
That's not an
anxiety,
emotion.
boredom, calmness, craving, disgust.
He looked it up.
Amusement.
He's leading us off the
So I'm just, there's a bunch of them out there. To say there's only hope and what? Fear?
And love.
And love. And jealousy. And
that's greed. Yeah, but they all distill down to, I would challenge you that I could get you can name all of those subtle differences, but you would boil them down to one of those three.
Yeah, okay, but guys, we're just let's just get back to the point, which is why is emotion important in lighting design?
Well, that's right. So how do you translate? That's really my topic. How do you translate whatever you're feeling, regardless of how many there are? How do you translate that into a choice? Is it just an intuitive thing? Is it a guess? How does that happen?
It's whatever you create through the elements of the design and the atmospheres you create and how they move.
But are you doing it for you or are you doing it for them?
Well, you got to do it for yourself, I think.
You think?
But I think it's different for everybody. Again, it's how you work.
If I want the audience to feel fear, I got to figure out what choice to make so that they feel fear, or vice versa.
Chances are, if you feel fear, the audience is going to feel fear as well.
Sure. I mean, you're taking the playwright out of this equation. You're taking the composer out of the equation. Taking the choreographer out. Jose Limon used to say, if you have done your work as a choreographer, if you've really done your work, you don't need anything else. You don't need costumes. Now, he liked them. You don't need stage lighting. He thought it was important. You don't even need music. A lot of his pieces were choreographed in silence. Mm-hmm. You just need a space in which the thing can happen. And the audience comes there and they bring their own, and they look at it, they fill in all the blanks and they bring their own emotional baggage to it. That event just washes over them. And everything else enhances it, and it certainly makes it better. But I don't know, you see this at really great rock and roll shows. The artist on stage performing is all you need. And you see some of these really terrible shows in which the lights are doing gymnastics all night long, and it's just a distraction. It's not enhancing anything. It's just doing its own little thing, and it doesn't really matter who the artist is below it, because that young designer is going to do their thing. There's... I guess tastes have changed a little bit, but I certainly remember back in my youth going to the theater and a curtain would go up and the audience would applaud the set. We don't see that so much anymore. We don't need to applaud light cues. We don't need to go, I'm glad that light cue was there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have felt hope tonight.
Right.
You're sitting there talking with the playwright and the director and the other designers about what you're trying to accomplish. Now, I think to Stan's point, what happens is that individual designer brings his or her interpretation to, we're going to say, hope again.
But you're right, Steve. You don't need it, but we do it to enhance it. But when we do it, we want to sort of, that was just an interesting sort of, maybe a bit of a intellectual, academic kind of conversation, but more of a question of aesthetics, right? Like how do you channel the aesthetics, from the emotion into aesthetic? And I think it's an interesting translation that happens.
It might be why all of the Shakespearean plays have kind of survived and we see them being done over and over and over again. And all of the machine theaters of that period are gone. Not to say they didn't give us something, but they're not there. We just saw that really wonderful Magic Theater posting from Ann McMills on watching scenery change. But that's not kind of why we come to the theater.
Good points. And since we're running out of time, we'll leave art and precision for another show.
This can be a three-parter.
It'll be a three-parter.
LTA. Good deal.
So no matter what, we have to do 2 more shows.
Why is the world going to end?
Yes, if we don't do all 3 of these, then
before
it's just not.
We're holding up the rapture unless we do these other 2 episodes.
Wait a second! You can't come down yet and destroy the Earth. We have 2 more shows.
We have to hit 200 at least.
We have 2 more shows. Yeah, we have to hit 200.
Well, I mean, we may have postponed it because there's a curiosity now. What are they going to say?
Exactly. So that being said, Steve has our last question.
All right, Phil in Arizona writes, how do you use stage lighting to communicate the time of day or the location to the audience? All right, there's all kinds of answers to this that you already know, Phil. So there can be color, there can be angle, there can be all of that. If you got a sight, that helps you. I'm going to say you don't. Now, all of these people, I can now say these things because all these people I've worked with are now dead or have long retired. Nothing used to drive me more batty than a director who would look at me and say, oh, we need to show 2:00 lighting. It needs to be 2:00. So, I mean, if you're talking about how do we communicate the time of day in a subtle fashion so we know it's not 11 a.m., but it's now 1:00 in the afternoon, I think, I have to tell you, I kind of think that's the job of the playwright.
Yeah.
And you hear this even sometimes. A playwright, I think in Picnic, to your point, the playwright has a line and it says, oh, look at the beautiful sunset, or what a beautiful afternoon, or what a beautiful morning. So the playwright gives us that information. And the lighting designer's job may or may not be to pick up on some of those notes. And as David says, I'm starting to be converted. David is converting me to the word atmospheres. So maybe the atmosphere of morning you're creating on stage. But, and when someone says, oh, it's 2:00 in El Paso, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, just put program note in.
It's funny you talk about atmosphere. It's dramatic atmosphere. I mean, to your point, Steve, it is not about recreating reality.
No, it has to be heightened reality if you're doing a real show.
It's got to be supporting the story that the actors are telling you and that the playwright intends and what you intend as a creative team, because it's really more important what is happening, what the dramatic moment is happening on stage. And you light the dramatic moment, and it may be some sort of a 5,600 Kelvin light coming through a window. It could be that realistic, or it could be a little warmer, or it could be a little less intense.
Depends on the emotion you're feeling from
or
this
whatever
scene.
That dramatic moment is, whatever those actors, the story the actors are telling, you must support that. So it's not recreating a time of day or a location. It's supporting the dramatic moment on stage.
Yeah, I mean, it used to kill me. I'd be doing Hamlet, and someone would say, it's 3 a.m.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, yeah, great.
What does that mean?
And how long does the scene last? Well, until about 3:30.
Yeah, right. It's theatrical, right? It's always enhanced. It's always heightened.
Not necessarily. I've seen some very realistic shows that are almost naturalistic, where people have used HMI fixtures to recreate daylight. And in most cases, they were good designers and it was called for, but it was a daylight scene.
Right.
So it's not always expressionistic naturalism or something like that. It was realism.
But know what? I disagree. As soon as you put something on stage, it's not natural. The whole thing is...
Well, that's a whole other argument, what naturalism is.
Right. The whole thing is artifice. No matter how you look at it, it's artifice. There's no way around. But I think you can help you make a decision. You can arbitrarily say, stage left is west and stage right is east, which will help you make a choice. So where does the sun come from in this scene? When you're working with the set designer, you can make some choices about what time of day it is and where the sun is and what part of Earth you're on. And you could research that for fun, but you should never wedge yourself to it and say you're doing absolute realism, because it isn't real if it's on stage anyway. And David's right about the dramatic moment, but I think you can study light in the natural world, and it can certainly inspire you and influence you for sure. But I do think, and you could, like I said, you can make some choices about, okay, we're going to put the window to the right on stage right, because in that last scene in Act 4, we really want some strong light coming in, because I'm going to sit her down in that chair by that window when she cries, and I think light streaming in that window from a low angle like it's sunset, because the play says it's sunset and she's sitting in the chair and crying. Then you put all that together.
I want the playwright to say, I always cry at sunset.
There we go.
I remember doing a show years ago where it was sort of a semi-realistic set, and we were approaching it in a very heightened way. But the set was basically realism. And we had a morning, like at 11 o'clock in the morning. We had, all that crap going on. And we were lighting the end, and I'm sitting there with the director, and there was a moment similar to what Stan is describing, where someone was sitting in a chair and we had a window. The window, if you were being realistic about it, was facing east, because again, at 11 o'clock in the morning, the light was coming in at a pretty, steep angle. And I'm lighting this thing, and I'm saying, something? Let's just do it out through the same window. It's a sunset, I know, but let's just do it because it calls for it. That moment called for a certain angle of light that the only way we could recreate that angle, because it was a box set with no windows on stage left, was coming through that window. And the director said, absolutely. And we did. And something, there was not one review, and there was certainly not one comment from an audience member saying, oh my God, why was that light coming from the east?
No one's going to think about that, because they're living in the moment.
Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, LiveDesignOnline.com, and just about every other podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you decide to litigate us, the law firm of Fleck, Flock, Flare, and Glare and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement funds and our Social Security are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Republic of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more happenings in our crazy industry.
All of that and the industry coming back.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning, where hopefully the election is decided. And bye-bye from Light Talk.
Toodles.
Hang on tight, folks.